Let's dive into those wide receivers, though. Let's transition here. Talk about Tyreek Hill briefly. Chris, I'm going to go to you to this. Don't tell me why Tyreek Hill is your number 4 when everybody else has him in the top 2. Tell me why you have, I'm assuming you have CeeDee Lamb number 1. So who's the other 2 guys you have in front of Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, I have CeeDee Lamb number 1. I have Justin Jefferson number 2. And for myself, what I'm looking at is a guy that, I love what he brings to the table. I love explosiveness. Tyreek Hill was amazing last year. The guy was, MVP discussed for most of the season. But it is a guy who's getting a little bit older. His quickness is his game. His speed is his game. We also saw Jaylen Waddle really kind of struggle last year being involved in offense. A big part of it was because he's banged up for a lot of the season. We saw the Dolphins add, OBJ. We saw them add another running back to the backfield. So I think there's more and more mouths to feed, and as that becomes an issue, you're going to have a hard time continuing to feature Tyreek Hill where he's going to get you 2,000 yards possibility. And if that starts happening, then you start seeing regression across the board. He starts falling down with some other guys where you have these big boom games, but maybe some games here where you're not getting touchdowns, you're not getting the big plays. So it's just a little concern where I trust the other guys more consistency week in, week out. I think Tyreek Hill still has probably the most upside of all the receivers. But I think when it comes down to guys I can trust in week in, week out, and this, the rest of us, you guys know about me, I'm looking for consistency. That's why I rank my guys. I'm not necessarily worried about where they end at the end of the season. I'm worried about who do I have getting me that 12, 15 points as a receiver 1 week in, week out. And that's where Tyreek Hill might be starting to slip. And, Chase always jokes about this too, but the off-the-field stuff, could eventually start creeping up on the field as well. So I just have some concerns where I'm not going to necessarily spend the draft capital in the top 3 or top 4 to get Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, fair enough. No variance in Chris's life. That's what he's saying. Talk about Garrett Wilson real quick. What am I talking about? Real quick, Chase. I thought I was big on him. I doubled down on him last year. Didn't work out very well. I'm going to double down on him again this year. But you got him even higher. You got him at 6, man. Help me get to your level. Help me get to your level.
Well, it's not a real far low. It's not like you're taking a giant leap to get him there from where you're at. I mean, you got him at 8. I've got him at 6. I mean,
I want to put him in the top 5. So if I can get to 6, then I can find a reason to put him in the top.
Well, I might be guilty. I'm a big Garrett Wilson wonk. I like Garrett Wilson. He was my favorite receiver out of that draft class when it came out. And I just think that he's looked good with absolutely terrible quarterback play both these years he's been in the league here. And he can't help but get better quarterback play if Aaron Rodgers plays more than 4 snaps this season. So if Aaron Rodgers makes it to the midway point of the first quarter of his first game this year, Garrett Wilson has to be better than what we've seen, right? 6 might be a little high, but like I said, I might be guilty of riding this wave of optimism about him and the Aaron Rodgers connection, but I think there may not be a clear cut situation in the league of he's the guy, and then they've got a bunch of other guys filling out the roster in terms of this pass attack. I've seen some optimism on Tyler Conklin lately, which I don't get because Aaron Rodgers does not like tight ends unless their name is Jermichael Finley, and he was a generational talent. They don't have a generational talent at tight end.
That's a phrase I never thought I'd hear. Jermichael Finley, generational talent.
He was till he got hurt, man. He was awesome.
He's a Green Bay fan, so just
I
know, and I love the cheeseheads.
Maybe he was
Jermichael Finley, generational talent.
It's a.
If that's not the tag of this episode, I don't know.
He was generational for the Great White North here at a position that that we tend to love, and he was far out of the ordinary. But I digress. Either way, he was a special talent nonetheless, and Tyler Conklin is not a special talent at the tight end position. He's a good professional football player, but not special at his position. And Aaron Rodgers just does not typically care about tight ends in that way. It's going to Garrett Wilson. Whatever passes get thrown in this offense are going Garrett Wilson's way if they don't stop at Breece Hall on the way to him. And so I just think with the volume that the guy's going to get, he's got to see more. He's going to have to catch more than 57% of his passes this season. We have seen him get the usage. We've seen the targets go his way, but he's had such absolutely abysmal quarterback play that he can't catch half the stuff that comes his direction. He's got to get better than that from Aaron Rodgers. If, like I said, Aaron Rodgers plays more than 4 snaps this season. So I'm in on Garrett Wilson's talent that way. I'm kind of borrowing from Chris. I'm betting on the talent here to rise above because he's going to be in the best situation he's been in terms of who's passing the football. The rest of the situation around him doesn't matter, as we've seen. he's a good player. He can rise above everything else, but with better quarterback play this year, I think we're finally going to see what Garrett Wilson is rather than what we wish he could be.
Yeah, not just the catch rate, but he also needs, or also will improve, I should say, on the 6.2 yards per target that he was receiving, which was the second lowest amongst receivers who had 100 or more targets last season. It was just brutal efficiency on top of not being able to, get a ball in a location where you could actually make a play on it. So this is what all the Jets talk, guys. All the Jets talk comes back to, can someone just rub a magic 8 ball and tell me if Aaron Rodgers is going to play an entire season, because then I can figure out how to project everybody, and then we'll be good.
I'll try. No.
And then the question is, how much does Tyrod play after that? Because
first game he gets hurt. We know that. First game he comes and he gets hurt, and then he'll come back at some point.
Does he get hurt 3 games in, or
no, one? It's always the first game he gets hurt, but he gets a chance, and then he comes back.
Tyrod has a strong argument to also being the best quarterback Garrett Wilson's played with. He just threw away Aaron Rodgers.
I don't even think it's an argument. I think it might just be a fact. Although that short Joe Flacco stretch was magical.
Yeah, that's the argument.
Maybe that's the argument. But
to Dan's point too about the play calling and the depth of target. Yeah, well, the more plays that Aaron Rodgers is in for this season, the more plays he's calling, and Nathaniel Hackett isn't, in all seriousness. So yeah, I just think that everything lines up for Garrett Wilson to have his best season. So I'm willing to bet on that.
Let's hope so. Let's go to Jaylen Waddle, Joe, because we mentioned him a little bit with the Tyreek Hill discussion, but Waddle even himself, yeah, it wasn't the year we were all hoping for last season, especially looking at that Dolphins offense. They did just sign him to a contract. They got the extension done. I have to think, to Chris's point, if he's a little more healthy this season, maybe he comes back to the Waddle we saw a couple of years ago, and the efficiency that's on the table with this offense. So what are you looking at when you see Jaylen Waddle? Where do you value him?
I look at the most undervalued, underappreciated guy maybe in this whole wide receiver grouping. I mean, Jaylen Waddle came into the league at 1,000 yards out of the gate, right? And then 2 years ago, 1,300 and 8 touchdowns. And then last year it was injuries. He wasn't healthy. But I always like to do something which is follow the money. The guy just got paid. And if you follow the money, then you know where the ball's going, because usually the ball goes where the money goes. So at the end of the day, Jaylen Waddle right now, I think, is a huge value. If you're somebody that does like to go first round Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson, then Jaylen Waddle, is a guy that I would be all over this year. I have him at wide receiver 17 only as a placeholder, because I want to see, just how he's out there working right now, because I think you could have him as high arguably as 13, because that's kind of where he was last year in rankings. So am I going to all of a sudden discount him in the most efficient, most explosive offense in football just because he was hurt last year? No. If he's hurt 2 years in a row, then we can have that conversation, and he's too young to have that conversation now. So I think this is a gross mismanagement by the market right now on Jaylen Waddle, where people have been a little too prisoner of the moment with him last year and the disappointment.
Well, what the best part is that right now with the market, you're drafting him at his floor. Even last year, which wasn't great, he was still on a points per game basis, wide receiver 23. So you're drafting him at his floor right now. So yeah, I'm 100% with you there. Let's go to, because we don't have to talk anymore about that. Let's talk about the Bills. Let's talk about Keon Coleman, because this is where we're going to have another discussion. If I can actually ever find a drop here, because I'm not really on the ball. All right, Chase, it's you and me. Joe's going to tell us which one wins. Maybe. He didn't last time, but we'll see if he does it this time.
I don't think anybody wins when you draft Raheem Mostert. I don't think there's
Thank you.
Fair enough. But this one's going to be about Keon Coleman, who should be number one receiver, maybe, for the Buffalo Bills. So Chase, I'll let you go first, because you got him all the way down at 50. Like, I don't know what did he piss in your Wheaties this morning? I don't know what he did. What did he do to you?
He's no Jermichael Finley.
He's not generational.
Look, it's Tony Gonzalez, it's Rob Gronkowski, and Jermichael Finley.
And then Jermichael. Listen, Keon Coleman, I like the dude, but I think we all grew to really love this dude during the draft process, and there's a lot of hype around him right now. In the fantasy realm right now, a lot of us are still in that. We just came off of the draft. We've been studying the rookies a lot. We're in dynasty draft mode right now and rookie draft mode, and the rookies are front of our mind right now. And I put a tweet out about it 2 days ago. I said, do not be overdrafting rookies just because they're front of your mind right now. None of these guys has taken a snap in the league yet, and we don't necessarily have concrete ideas of all of their roles yet. Now, we all kind of figure that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the number one and is going to be that kind of guy because, to borrow a phrase for myself, as a generational talent, that dude actually looks like one and has been spoken about as such. And I think we know what we get with Marvin Harrison. As you get farther down the line, those kinds of things are less and less clear, and we don't necessarily know yet exactly what Keon Coleman's role is going to be. We all hope that he should be their number one. They used second round draft capital on him on a team that needed and lost their wide receiver one. So I think we all hope that's what he's going to be, but we don't know yet. And he's a rookie. And listen, 50 might be a little low on him. He might grow into that number one role, but Curtis Samuel is still there. Okay, they brought him in. I think they're going to like him.
He's not still there. He's there now.
But I mean, he is still in the picture. It's not like Keon Coleman is the only guy that they have, in the room right now. Khalil Shakir was there last year. We still, are waiting to see what we get from him. This is a team where, their top three receivers last season, Stephon Diggs was a clear number one. And the other two guys, Shakir and Gabe Davis, didn't really score us a whole lot of anything to be excited about in fantasy. You don't have that Stephon Diggs talent this year. You've got three guys who I think are going to be a lot more even in terms of what we see out of them fantasy-wise for this season. Now you come back to me next year, Keon Coleman might be a wide receiver 2 type for me. But I think my ranking him at 50 is much more a reflection of me wanting to pull the brakes and pump the brakes on assuming that Keon Coleman is going to be not just the number one guy in Buffalo, but a number one guy in general. And we talked about it with Josh Allen situation earlier. We're not necessarily even sure what this pass offense is going to look like as a whole. Are we so sure that the top three guys this season will match the output as a combined whole of the top three guys last season? That's a big stretch. And it's a big stretch that any of them is going to get enough to score you anything that you're going to want them in your lineup on a daily basis. So my ranking on him on 50 might be a little low, but I think it's much more, like I said, a reflection of me wanting to pull back from the excitement of Keon Coleman, from the excitement of a rookie stepping into a situation that we're not sure about, even if he wasn't a rookie.
Look, I totally agree with you, obviously, on the point of there's a lot of variance here when it comes to the Bills' passing attack offense, a lot of questions that we're going to wait to see what gets answered. And your ranking is more in line with the market right now. His ADP is at wide receiver 56. And when I'm telling people where they should be drafting Keon Coleman, it is back where you kind of have him ranked at. But my thing is I have him ranked at wide receiver 37 in reflection of what I think his upside is going to be. I want Keon Coleman to be my first wide receiver 4, or even be okay with him being a back end, low end wide receiver 3. When I look at Keon Coleman, yes, he was drafted. That's why everybody's hyped on him right now. I guess it's also because, there's a number one receiver vacancy with Josh Allen in that offense that could be ripe for the taking. Yes, Keon Coleman was technically a second round draft pick, but it was the first pick the Bills made this year because they kept trading back in that first round and then traded back all the way out to the second round to Keon Coleman. We don't love his speed. I think that's why sometimes he gets docked a little bit, because we all love the speedy, explosive guys all the time. But at Chris's point, I want the guy who's going to make plays all the time. Yes, 4'6", 140, but he was one of the best receivers in contested catches, and in particular in the red zone, something the Bills do not really have much out of the tight end group. They don't have a wide receiver. Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, not really red zone guys. He's going to be the lead guy right away in that receiver room when it comes to red zone targets. And even with Joe Brady last season, you mentioned it, we don't know what the target share necessarily is going to reflect for the receivers. But as bad as Stephon Diggs was from a fantasy standpoint, he was still getting a 29% target share that just kind of opens up the doors. No, Keon Coleman's not going to get 29%, but I think it's very reasonable to expect a 22 to 24% target share in this offense in his situation. And now all of a sudden, if he's getting that target share with Ball being the main red zone guy, now we're talking about a guy who's got upside of being a top 24 wide receiver, which is why I have him ranked at wide receiver 37 to kind of reflect where I think the upside is from the market. So I'm looking at Keon Coleman in this offense with Josh Allen. The opportunity's there. I like what he's suited to do. And that's why I got him at 37. Go ahead, Joe.
I think right now when you look at Keon Coleman, what you're saying is the projectability of what he could be. I want to be a little bit more careful than that in his rookie season because I have to be proven by Josh Allen that he is capable of not hyper-focusing on one guy and just trying to funnel the ball to him, that he can see the field well enough to play Drew Brees and play point guard and just throw the ball to the open guy. I know that's what they want him to do, but we haven't seen him do that yet. So I have him at 53 right now. So I am closer to the 50 side because, again, it's not that I don't think he can get to 37. It's just I think that is leapfrogging a lot of guys. Like I've got the Lad McConkeys over him. I got the Xavier Worthies over him. I got those guys in situations I think are going to be better. And I think you are discounting a little bit of year 2 of Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid was really good in college. Last year was just his rookie year. I think we got to give him a little bit more time here just to kind of, again, look at some of the pacing of of tight ends. Shannon Sharp took a couple years to be good. Ozzie Newsome took a couple years to be good. Tony Gonzalez those guys are all in the Hall of Fame, and none of them had a good year in the first 3 years. Dalton Kincaid is working his way towards that. It's a really good year for tight ends. I think Pitts breaks out this year in a big way with Cousins. I think Kincaid's going to have a great year. I love Trey McBride. It's a great year to be drafting tight ends. I can't believe we're saying that. But when it comes to the Bills, I think Kincaid, Shakir, those are the guys at their value I think are more interesting. And the market sees Coleman at 50. So I think I'm closer to the market. So again, I think he's got the upside for that, but I can't justify ranking him there right now.
Okay, you can win this one, Chase. Fine, whatever. You got to win one sometimes every once in a while.
He's crazy for calling Jermichael Finley in general.
Blind squirrel finding a nut. Yeah, so I needed to come back from that. I needed to come back from that soundbite. Yeah.
Oh my, that's gonna haunt you forever.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be the first short we're putting out after the show. By the way, just so you know, it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Bring it.
I'm waiting for that Jermichael Finley jam to drop too. Can he go out there and put out a music video like Darren? That's the video I want to see.
And Chase will be in the background producing the whole thing.
By the way, I was going to like deep dive looking at Jermichael Finley stats during your conversation just because I couldn't. I just wanted to say.
Joe's like,
are they generational? I
had to say it.
Well, I mean, he did have one season with 8 touchdowns, and he never had more than 760 yards in a season. But sure, I mean,
but again, that's part of my point with Aaron Rodgers and the Tyler Conklin hype that I keep seeing somehow happening. He doesn't like tight ends, period, even if they're good tight ends.
Robert Tonyan caught 10 touchdown passes, dude. I don't know if you could keep saying that.
That's terrible.
Don't disrespect Big Bob.
That's terrible.